get business majors, business students, of course that's all we have here, get them attuned to the fact that business is indeed part of society. And you'll hear me say this again and again and again. The old adage about business and society, business and, like there's two separate entities, two separate sets of ethics and values that apply, which when I was growing up, that's pretty much the way we taught it. And in fact, in the business side, you maybe didn't have any ethics. It was accepted. That was just a whole different world. On the social side, that's when you went into that soft stuff and you start thinking about it. The business side, no, business was just business. Right? They have that phrase, you've seen it in movies, right? Not personal, it's just business. We're trying to bring that all back together. Convince business, through our MBA students here, convince them that they are really part of society. They are a subset of society. Business is comprised of people just as society is comprised of people. We're all working together in the same direction. Now, we've got just about everybody here, so what I'd like to do is just to give everybody a feel for who we have in the room. I'll go around with a quick introduction. I'll ask you to give your name, your company title, and one little known fact about yourself, okay? Don't be embarrassing. Just something that someone who look at you might not assume. Okay. So I'll start off. I'm Alex Mavro, the operations officer of this unit, the Sustainability Center, SCSM. And many years ago, my little known fact is that I started a band here very many years ago. It was a very successful band. We had a hit, which many of you probably too young to remember, called Kudali. Yeah, we did Kudali as a rendition of it, and became a hit, and I was very popular for a while. So that's my little known secret, and that's me. My name is. You can use the mic if you need it.
My name is Christine, and you can call me Joe. I work at SCSM Consulting. We are a consulting processing that help other government agencies and most likely settlement plans to their strategies. I work here for almost 3 years.
And your little secret? That's not a secret. What is a little known fact about yourself? Have you ever been a Samoa driver or not? something in your past you can tell us about.
I graduated from University. I studied economics. I don't care much about society.
Gentlemen, choose your weapons. Yes.
Hello everyone, my name is Teresa Cherry. I'm a senior analyst at SCSM Management Consulting. We are colleagues.
Okay.
And for a little secret about myself, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And it's my passion, so I hope that one day I can start a little music school for children.
Wow. Okay. Excellent.
Hi, my name is Ravi Riyatam. I'm actually from WWF and my position is a culture specialist. Recently, I'm working on a stream business case and I have to work with a lot of stream producers and communities in local social some sort of thing. There's no risk I don't like that. I'm not a city boy, so I like to travel.
Okay, well this is the sort of background that can really help you. And what's your little known secret that you're not a country boy? You're not a city boy?
No, actually I grew up in Braga, it's not big for
Oh my
but
goodness.
it's pretty much dance and industrial time. And the thing is, I like fresh air. And here they don't provide us with fresh air.
Yeah.
So, and like for my bachelor, I decided to study in undergrad for university in marine science. And so far after that, I went to Open University in Alabama, USA. That's what we're fishing. So that's how it's like my university.
Y'all don't talk like that.
Yeah, actually. interview, right? I'm sorry. Let's go for it.
Okay, that's a nice little secret. Okay.
Hello, my name is Nathan Chai. You can call me Nat. Currently, I am helping my family business at Event Electronic to do like some managers and some like stuff.
Manufacturing,
It is a training company.
trading.
It's electronic trading.
Okay.
My life is so great, so I didn't have this secret.
You don't have a little known secret?
Yes, my life is like very smooth.
Yeah.
Nothing less in my life.
Yeah, you didn't want to be a fireman when you were young, or a suit, or Superman. No. Okay. All right. This is a very dry crowd. Yes.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Paigun. I work as a IT manager here. Why I joined this seminar is I found that the app in the elevator is informal and is more interesting than the other one. And my passion is actually I have my passion. The passion in sports, every kind of sport. And I have in the past I tried many tech startups, but still not really successful.
Really? Okay. What's your absolute favorite sport? Golf? Team
golf.
sports?
No soccer.
Okay. Excellent. All right. And the name, company, position, and a little known fact about yourself.
Hello, my name is Tantida. I work as customer relation executive at Human Dynamics. I have with my boss today, so I let her explain about my company.
That's not fair.
And a little known fact about me, I grew up in Chiang Mai, so most people when I say like I'm from Chiang Mai, everyone like, what really? And then you're from the south.
Really? Oh, my goodness, what a difference. Okay.
Alright. My name is Kate. It's easier for you guys to remember that way. I'm from Human Dynamics as well. I'm her boss actually. My little facts about myself. I'm a mother of 1 baby girl. And I've just been working in a company for increasing wellness awareness and work-life integration for Thai people. And recently there's not much awareness in the society about this point. And I just received a notice from the company that if I couldn't increase more awareness about this and increase business development in the company, I may be removed from the company.
Oh.
So it's like, right now it's just trying to find some ideas or some opinions about how to make it work in terms of, combining organization, CSR or social communities, activities, things like that together just to find more ideas.
Wellness is a big
I know it's a big
activity
deal.
within the corporate responsibility field. I mean, it's powerful stuff. It really helps the company, among other things. Okay, thank you.
Kate, you've got a tough challenge, yeah?
I know.
Let's see if we can do this better than the other.
Teacher.
Hi, good morning. My name is Charlie. Charlie Nolan, and at the moment I am out and about. In between my jobs. So I've got a bit of time, and I was looking through Eventbrite and I saw this come through. So this is something good that I'd like to know a bit more about, especially in South End, where I'm my old school. So.
Oh, good. You're mamas, huh?
Yes. I was in batch for the first year. It was called GIGA, and the second year is called Sunset.
That's right.
So I had that transition year.
You just dated yourself. You didn't know that.
I
I was very careful. When I thought
that's a
about
secret,
men.
but they don't know. And at that time, I'm kind of who was that guy? That's people asking me. So that's the not so common secret.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Color.
I've been involved in CSR for about 20 years, although we didn't call it CSR. I am president of the Hexagon Group, which is a group of independent, basically Marcoms companies. We form together to form project teams to do very big projects for big companies. I'm also chairman of Colin Jarvis Associates, which is a corporate communications consultancy, which seems to be spending more and more of its time involved in cross-cultural communication and training people, telling people how to work with Farang and Farang to work with Thai. They think it's going to be easy, and it ain't. I do a lot of teaching and writing, both of which I love. I set up the first school of classical Thai dance in Europe. That isn't a little-known fact. A lot of people who know me know that. The little-known fact is I'm also a weir and lockkeeper, qualified weir and lockkeeper on the River Thames.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I'm Abby. I'm here actually under two capacities. I work with Asia Injury Prevention Foundation, but I'm also here under Princeton University Fellowship. I've been working in social enterprises and both the public and private sector. I guess something fun about me, I worked for the UK Parliament on legislation around primates.
Wow. Wow.
Pretty fun.
And if you're not British, or at least you don't have the...
I am not British, so it was very fun working for a member of Parliament as an American.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, hi, I'm Nigon. You can call me Nick if you like, and it's easier. Come from Solek. We are the investor in the solar farm in Asia.
Oh.
And we also, actually, it's our mother company, is Equis Fund Group. We are the investor in all kind of infrastructure in Asia. So we have solar farm, wind farm, ethanol plant, and also a small dam around Asia. And my role is the environmental social governance specialist. So I'm taking care of every compliance against about to the environmental code, as well as our investment costs, and also about to do some CSI activity. I think it's the most challenging job for my company.
Yeah, where are your farms?
In Thailand, it's in Ubon Ratchathani, Ba, Kamphaeng Phet, and Sukhothai. Yeah, and we also, actually it's 10 solar farms here. And we have other thing in Philippines, India, China, Japan.
Okay.
And I think, my little secret is, I'm a party animal until I have 2 daughters. Yeah, so it's not that routine right now.
Party girl over here. Okay.
Good morning, I'm Sasitra Nalachai. I'm coming from ICBC Bank, Thailand. And this is Chinese bank, which is now is the biggest bank in the world. So the secret thing is, current job is the HR, is strategic HR, that moving the people's mindset to be ready for the world's change. And second thing that is my secret is keep learning for all things new because you will be open the world every day. That's it. Thank you.
Very philosophical, thank you. And we had one late arrival, name, title, company, and little secret, little known fact about yourself.
So my name is Jasam, and company, I'm kind of wondering right now because I am about to leave PwC, where I'm a corporate responsibility supervisor on my own. But I'm now looking for a new job and working on a social enterprise with a friend of mine. And a little known secret, it's been a long time since I've found a job that's motivated me, so hopefully that comes around soon enough.
Okay, the job that fires you up. We'll look at our staff, our colleagues here.
Good morning, I'm Pra. I am the Sustainability Manager here at the Sassin Center for Sustainability Management, and welcome all of you to Sassin.
Hi, my name is Russell. I'm a research analyst at Sassin Center for Sustainability Management.
Okay, and Nick?
Hi, I'm Nick. I'm a faculty member here. I'm also the director of the Sustainability Center here. Welcome all to SCSM.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you very much. Thanks
I
for
teach sustainability and business ethics and entrepreneurship.
Anything else?
That's it for now.
Okay. Okay. Great. We're going to move right along here. The game plan is to start with a very, very brief overview of sustainability itself, very brief, and then going into the stakeholder component of it. Then we'll have a workshop. Hopefully we can do that for about 20, 30 minutes, and we'll have a post-mortem on the workshop. We'll be out of here promptly at 11 o'clock, as promised. One gentleman has to leave here at 10:30. I tell you this now, so you know he's not leaving in disgust at what we're doing. He just has to catch a flight and get out of here, Colin. That's fine, whatever you have to leave. Okay, so to start with, I think this group, unlike, except with maybe one exception here, we won't have any arguments about the importance of sustainability, the importance of being a responsible company, the importance of being aware of your impact on the world around you. Okay? And we'll make a believer out of him, or we won't let him out of here. You know? That's the way it works. You're outnumbered today. There's lots of definitions of sustainability, the Brundtland Commission and all this. The one I like to oversimplify, you know, Occam's razor. You know, the simplest solution is often, you know, sometimes the most helpful. And for me, sustainability is living for tomorrow, instead of living as if tomorrow was never going to come. So it's living for the long term, not living for today, and today only. So there's some more oversimplification coming, because I think that to really have a sustainability worldview, you have to have a grasp of three areas, three competencies, three theories. One is systems. You have to understand a bit about systems theory, the knock-on effect. What we say in the Psalm, the knee bone connected to the thigh bone, right? So you have to understand that things are interconnected. You've all heard the butterfly effect, right? The wings of the butterfly starting the hurricane on the other side of the world. So systems, that's a topic which we're going to get to in probably the second half of the year. But let me give you just a tickler here to show you what we mean when we talk about interconnectivity. We saw a chain of events. It started with the butterfly landing on the car horn going off, that's what we're talking about, the interconnectivity of things. The butterfly wings, and they were the butterfly's wings in this case. That's systems. The second thing, the second big area that you have to grasp if you're going to come to terms with sustainability as a topic are stakeholder theory. And we're going to touch on that today. We're going to have an introduction to that today. And the third is change management. Because what we're talking about in all of this is looking at the world in a different way, approaching things in a different way. So it's change. And how do we control change? We're going to have the next session on this will be change at the individual level, called Giving Voice to Values, which Nick will be running in May. And then after that, we'll have one later on at the organizational level. So those are the three topics: systems, stakeholders, and change, that you really have to somehow make up your own understanding of in order to put together and come up with an understanding of sustainability. Stakeholder. How many of you had ever heard of stakeholders before today? Huh? Many? Okay. Have you? Even. Okay. Stakeholder. Actually, it's a very new term. And when you talk to people here at South Sin, they tend to sort of clinical, they don't know whether they're saying shareholder or stakeholder. You know, they're trying to get out of the groove and get into bigger world, but it's not clear that they're there yet. It really only came together about 30 some years ago with a gentleman by the name of Ed Freeman, who you'll see later in the video. Very, very interesting character, very Renaissance man kind of gentleman. He's a martial artist, he's a musician, he obviously when you hear him talk, you'll see he's very, got a very high IQ. And he put together this theory saying, rather than the Milton Friedman school, which says you only have to answer to one set of stakeholders, which is who does Friedman say we have to answer to? Only one. The bankers. The shareholders, right? The shareholders. According to Milton Friedman, if you respond to your shareholders, therefore you'll make money, therefore you're home free. Now, that's a very simplistic way of looking at things, and it might be diagrammatically helpful, but in terms of really dealing with the real world, which is full of complexity, it's not so helpful. And this is where Ed Freeman comes in and says, look, yes, there are such things, there are stakeholders, shareholders are stakeholders, but there are a whole range of other people who affect the business and who you affect that you have to be aware of. And he called these, he made up the term, essentially, stakeholders, just to get people off the tangent of talking only about shareholders. And again, in those days, 30 years ago, a couple of us were around then, we didn't think twice about saying, well, it's business, and therefore, you don't have to think too much about ethics, you don't have to think too much about values. All you have to do is do what you're told, whatever makes money. And if you think about that now, it means, if we could just burn the business down and get the insurance money and make more money that way, we should do that. Because that's really what they're saying here. It doesn't matter what happens tomorrow, as long as we can get our money today, satisfy the people who invested in the company. That's an absurd extreme example, but it's indicative of the mindset. So in contrast to that, Freeman says it makes no sense to talk about business or ethics without talking about human beings. Business is conducted by human beings. Decisions are made by human beings. The purpose of the value creation and trade, i.e. business, is for the benefit of human beings. So see what he's trying to do? He's trying to put humanity back into business, if you will. Put the soul back into business. And traditionally we talk about the consumer, and the producer. These are not people. These are stereotypes. These producers and consumers and various other stereotypes that we put up and talk about are not real people. And so when we're trying to make our decisions, our business decisions in the real world, we should be talking about real people. And that's what Ed Freeman is trying to convince us of. He also says the shareholder theory of value is that man is essentially not so good. Gordon Gekko, we've all seen the famous sequence, greed is good. Greed is good. And there are people that really believe that. I show that clip sometimes to business audiences and they go, greed is good. But people are not essentially greedy. They're really not. And most people, most of the time, really are concerned about their impact on the world around them. Whether they say it or not, they act it. And they're concerned. And who are these people? Of course, if you're in business, these people are your customers, your employees, your suppliers, communities around you, financiers. Now, this is interesting. Ed Freeman prefers to use financiers as opposed to shareholders because he thinks the term has just been overused. People just locked onto shareholders and they forget then about stakeholders. So he calls them financiers. This would be banks and everybody who's involved with financing the company. So the way he describes stakeholder theory, then it's really a business of it's really a theory for how to run business even better than it's been run in the past. It's more complex, an approach, because you have so many different groups that you have to worry about, not just one, but it makes for a better business if you can get the hang of it. As opposed to what Friedman says, that all you need is to keep your shareholders happy, all you need to do is make money, and that's the end of it. Friedman points out that if you don't have product and service that customers want, you don't have good relationships with your suppliers, you don't have employees who are inspired to push the company and to help the company, and you don't have a community that supports you, and your community can shut you down, then nothing else counts. So it's not just one group of stakeholders that you need to be concerned about. You need to be concerned about these other groups as well. So he maintains the focus on shareholders alone is counterproductive because it takes away from this focus on the greater group. He also maintains that we need to examine the makings up or the drives of each of the stakeholder groups that we identify. And that's what we're going to do today in the exercise, is identify stakeholder groups. And we're going to look at what drives them, what motivates them, what are they looking for, and what are we looking for, and how can we come to terms with that. Because in the end, the way to make money is balancing all of these needs so that everyone at least goes away with something, maybe not everything they want, but they go away with something that they're looking for. And the company, in the end, puts it all together and benefits. So shareholder value is a component, yes, but it's not all that there is to stakeholder value. Now, we're going to practice again, because what we need to do today is to evaluate what it is that our various stakeholders are looking for. We're going to practice to see if we can come up with that. We'll do an example. What we'd like to do is walk you through this very, very briefly so that you can take this thinking back to your own organizations and apply it. And for example, in your community there, you can, once you get this mindset and get this approach down, you can put it to good use. So, where are we? Before we go on, I want to just remember that there are priorities. The priorities within business, priorities even among stakeholders. There we go. And I'd like to show you how easy it is to sometimes forget what we Okay, priorities, right? That's what happens when you lose track of priorities. Now the point is I'm not trying to push separating garbage here, okay? The point is keeping your mind focused on your own priorities. What are your priorities? Well, this is what we're going to try to work out right now. When it comes to identifying stakeholders, there are many, many different ways that you can record your findings about your stakeholders, the people that impact your company. You all know that stakeholders, anybody who impacts your company or who you can impact, right? Directly or indirectly. One of the very, very basic matrices, and this is what I used when I first started out years ago, was just to list the stakeholders down the left-hand side. There are lots and lots of stakeholders, as you will discover. And not just 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. listing the stakeholders down one side, listing their primary concern, and then listing how important they are, basically what their impact is on the company. And this is a good starting point. And you, as an initial exercise, you might want to use this. I'm going to show you some alternatives. A little bit more refined version shows the stakeholder, the criticality, in other words, how important they are to the company, how they feel, the current orientation is how they feel, that particular stakeholder group, how they feel about this issue or about the company as a whole, and then in the end, the degree of influence that they have over the issue at hand. Then it gets very complex, and you can go online, and if anybody really wants to get into it, I can give you some links where you can go online and they have matrices like this, where you fill out the position, the internal, external, the level of knowledge the stakeholder has in one column, whether it's support, opposed, neutral, what their interest is, advantage or disadvantage. Now, if you go online and do this, some of these programs are completely free. You can plug in and put all your information in, and it'll sort it any way you like. So you can come to your various conclusions about it. You can sort it in terms of internal versus external stakeholders, or importance to the company, or impact themselves that they have on the decision. And then you can, another way is to just enhance the overall matrix, whatever you come up with, by adding this column for strategy, which is what you think you need to do with that stakeholder group in order to get them to respond in the way that you'd like them to respond. So you probably recorded how they feel about an issue, and you might have recorded how you want them to feel about that issue. So this is a way of putting in there how you're going to get them from where they are to where you'd like them to be. And then if you really want to get fancy, you can put in the assignment who it is that's going to be responsible for that. Now what I'd like to do today, I'm going to give you oops, here we go. This is going to be our problem for the day. You are with Plum Chai and Sons. It's a legal firm. And I've come up with this format is one that I use, I've come around to using through the years, where I show that the stakeholder, their key concerns, how they feel about it now, how I'd like them to feel about it, what I can do to change that, and very importantly, the priority. Because not everybody has the same priority. They might have strong feelings, but they don't have the same priority as far as the company is concerned. So we'll use this format today, and I'll leave this up so you can see this format. And we're going to team up in teams of 3. So you 3, you 3, you 3, and you 3. Okay? And we're going to come up and identify the stakeholder groups that Plum Chai is dealing with. And I'm going to give you an arbitrary target of at least 6 major stakeholder groups, and within each of the 6, at least 6 specific lesser stakeholder groups. So a major stakeholder group would be like customers, would be employees. Okay, these are pretty obvious. Okay, but what are the subgroups within those? Not all your employees have the same interests. You might have drivers who are not going to have the same interest as office staff. Okay? So what are the subgroups that you can see within this context? Now, they're not all spelled out here. You can make assumptions. Remember, this is Plum Chai's puff piece. This is what they want the world to think about them. So you have to read between the lines to see what's really going on. Right? You can assume, you can make your own assumptions. Okay? So we'll give you about, perfect, 30 minutes, 25 minutes maybe, to come up with these, teams of 3, teams of 3, teams of 3, teams of 3. to come up with the 6 major stakeholder groups and the 6 lesser within each of those 6. Okay? And showing the key concern, the present feeling, desired feeling, strategy, and priority. Now, when you do this in real life, you can do it maybe in an afternoon if you have the right group of people together, but it won't be necessarily too thorough, because once they start thinking about it, the next day they're going to come up with more ideas. So I like to do it in a series of 2 or 3 sessions over a month, and each session maybe 2 or 3 hours. So it gets people's juices flowing, you come back together, you bounce ideas, you go off, come back again. Because at the end of the month, then you'll have a pretty good feeling for all the people involved in your stakeholder range. Remember, it's everybody who can touch the company, everybody that the company touches. I've had customers say, well, I'm on the 9th floor, like these people are, I'm on the 9th floor of an office building, I don't have any neighbors. Is that true? Who's on the other side of that wall? Right? Who's outside, just outside that wall? These are neighbors. Okay. So I had just yesterday an incredible conversation with a gentleman in an extractive industry, and he was saying, what are stakeholders? And I said, oh, they're customers, they're government entities, they're the community that surrounds you, they're your what? He said, oh, we don't have any of those. And I assume he said it with a straight face. It was over the phone, so I don't know if he's pulling my leg or not. But actually, we don't have any of those. So I'm interested to follow up to find out what kind of business he has that doesn't have employees. Yeah, pretty interesting. So we'll start now. The clock will start ticking. 3, 3, 3, 3. And after we do this, we'll compare notes and we'll have a post-mortem. Okay? I'll come up with 36 different. Yeah. Okay. Now, again, when I go into companies and do this, I normally don't give them the big groupings, and I let them come up with all the individual groupings. I want them to come up with things like the coffee lady, the cleaners in the building, the people that they don't normally think of all the time. Those people are impacted by the fact that you're there. The hospital down the street is impacted by the fact that you're there. So public services are impacted by the fact that you're there. And have them come up with all these things, and then they in turn can group them. And once you do that, you'll always have the same top 5 or 6 groups, and you prioritize will always be the same top 5 or 6. But if you don't go through the motions and let your staff just determine that themselves, they'll forget it. They won't keep it in mind. So when you do this in your company, have your staff to sit down and just tell them, I want everybody who's impacted, and then start pushing them to think about it. About at a hotel down the road. We do whole sessions there. We do bring guests to the hotel. Okay, that's impacted by our business. So your stakeholders are a lot wider than most people assume. You have a much bigger impact than you're conscious of in many cases. And of course, bear in mind these people also can impact you. So in many cases it's a two-way street. So it's a helpful exercise to go through. It's not easy. On the surface it looks like it should be, but it's not to come up with all these people. And then to realize, wow, I thought it was just you and me. It's not just you and me. There's a whole world out there, and it's all some way, many of them are some way connected. I talked to, back when I first got interested in this field, I talked to one of the corporate responsibility people from Coca-Cola, and I said, how do you identify your stakeholders? How do you know when you have a stakeholder? And he said, a stakeholder is anyone who says he is. He may not even drink Coke. Yeah. But if he says he's interested in Coke for whatever reason, because he thinks it's harmful or because he thinks it's great or whatever, if he says he is, he's a stakeholder. I'm not going to tell him he's not a stakeholder. And if he thinks he is, then he is. And we have to deal with him appropriately. So that shows you just how broad the meaning can be. Now, obviously, you're not going to deal with everybody on the same basis, but that's why you go through and refine what it is the various stakeholder groups that you mix with are looking at and are interested in, and then you try to respond on that basis. The point that Friedman makes, and the point that Ed Freeman makes, is that shareholders are not the only stakeholder group. In classical business theory, we're taught that the shareholders own the company. But if you look at technicalities, if you look at the legalities, that's not the case. It's really not the case. And this woman here, Lynn Stout, has done groundbreaking work on showing where legally the shareholders are not the owners of the company. They're entitled to returns, but they're not owners of the company per se, the same way if I open my own shoe store, I do own that company, that's for sure. But shareholders of a public company are not really the owners. The true owners are the people who are actually the board, because the way that the companies are structured, the boards come first, and shareholders come later. So the boards are really, technically and legally, it's been, when it's tested in, of all places, in the U.S. courts, where everything goes to court, in the U.S., it's been established time and time again. The shareholders are not the owners. So don't have to worry about the fact that we're putting them into second place. We're not. They're just one among many stakeholders. They're an important stakeholder group for sure, but they're not the only and not the biggest by any means. So it's important to bear that in mind. Now we're going to. Does anybody have any particular problems with this, with coming up with these stakeholder groups? Now, if you have, if you think of as broadly as I encourage you to think of, in other words, your neighbor in a building, if you're in an apartment building, you're in your home, and you own an apartment, and your next door neighbor is the next apartment next to you, and your other neighbors are around you in the whole building. So these are all people impacted by your activity and who are impacting you as well. So think of it in the broadest possible terms, because your impact is broad. Now, we're going to close with a sequence from Ed Freeman, who I've quoted from a lot today, because number one, he's very colorful. You'll see, very colorful guy. He's very well spoken, and if you go online, you could download. He's got online courses and everything that explain his stakeholder theory very, very clearly. He's a slow-talking American. He's sort of a southerner, so he's got a very nice, easy-to-understand way of speaking. And we'll listen to him right now. And while I'm looking for this, I'd like to say two more points. Number one, these stakeholder relationships, are they tangible or intangible? Yeah, intangible, right? You can't, it's not, they don't show up in your books anywhere, do they? And yet, are they important? Yeah. Why are they important? Because your brand as a company is not what you say it is. Your brand is what your stakeholders say it is. And they're saying it to each other. That's part of the relationships that they have with one another. So you need to be part of that. It's not a dialogue. It's an ongoing conversation from all directions. You need to be part of that in order to keep your brand value and your intangible value up. Of the Standard & Poor's 500 in the U.S., about 70% of the value of those companies is brand. 70%. And they estimate that industry-wide or business-wide, it's between 40 and 50% of a company's value is brand or intangible. So it's all coming from stakeholder relationships, how you're interacting with your stakeholder, not how you're broadcasting to them or dictating to them, but how are you interacting with them? How are you responding to them?
The way I see stakeholder theory is problem. How are we going to understand business in the 21st century? How can we have an idea about business that offers us hope, that tries to make business better? I really think we can be the generation that makes business better. But we can only do that if we tell a new narrative, a new story about what's possible for business. And I think that story goes roughly like this. Every business always has and always will create and sometimes destroy value for customers, suppliers, employees, communities, and people with the money, financiers, bondholders, shareholders. And the interests of these groups go in the same direction. Yes, there's some conflict, but we need to figure out how to get them going in the same direction. What's good for customers needs to be good for suppliers. What's good for shareholders needs to be good for communities. I think we have, in part, the global financial crisis because we forgot about that. We looked at either shareholders only, or what's good for governments only, or what's good for consumers only. There's a jointness to these interests. If we're going to have business in the 21st century, if we're going to make business better, if we're going to raise the level of people in societies, then we need something like stakeholder theory. It's a revolution, but it's a revolution in ideas. We need a new story before we can figure out how to enact that story. Well, stakeholder theory has been developing for the last 35, 40 years or so. And there are lots of different interpretations of it. Some people see stakeholder theory as about civil society groups, NGOs, governments, etc. Some people see it as about corporate social responsibility. I see it primarily as about value creation. How do we create value for customers, suppliers, employees, communities, and people with money? And that's not such an easy idea. There are lots of things that we need to change if we take that idea seriously. For instance, we might want to think about something other than profitability to measure the total performance of a company, because profitability primarily measures performance with investors. That's not completely right, but we might need a different way to think about that. We might need even a different way to think about accounting, because our accounting conventions are primarily aimed at investors. The issue that's most troubling to me, however, is that I think our current way to think about business has a very narrow idea of what a human being is. We've turned business into something that's like, the physics of money, rather than a human institution that's embedded in society and other institutions. And that's what we need. We need to explore that challenge. How can we have a business, a story about business in businesses that are really fit for human beings? That's what we're missing. I think one of the most exciting areas in stakeholder theory is its application to starting a business in entrepreneurship. Sometimes it's hard for large businesses to change, but they can't change if they're not conscious of what they're doing. If I'm not conscious of the fact that something's wrong with me, I can't do anything to change it. So the idea of stakeholder theory is to make people conscious that my actions have effects on a broad range of people in the world. Every entrepreneur knows this, because every entrepreneur is struggling to get their business to work. Some of the people who see stakeholder theory as primarily about corporate social responsibility say, oh yeah, you're talking about social entrepreneurship. And I'm not so sure what that is. I think entrepreneurship is about changing society. Entrepreneurs have a purpose. They want to make the world a better place, for the most part. They have some idea they want to implement in the world. They're on fire about something. And they got to make money. Both of those things go together. And it doesn't matter whether you're a traditional entrepreneur trying to figure out how to sell a new video camera, or you're an entrepreneur trying to figure out how to get more food to a homeless shelter. You still got to figure out how to pay the bills. you're on fire probably about changing the world. So I think entrepreneurship is an area that's really important as we go forward in Stakeholder. I'm a hopeless optimist about the future and the role of Stakeholder Theory. I've never seen, I've been writing about this for a lot of years, and I've never seen any more interest in the idea than there is now. Both in big companies, in part because people talk about corporate social responsibility, but it's hard to define that without thinking about concrete stakeholders and what you should do. And I want to include in that not just civil society, but the ones that are more traditional business model stakeholders, customers, suppliers. Oftentimes CSR leaves those out, and that's a real problem. I've never seen students more interested in starting a business, and in starting businesses and working for businesses that actually make the world a better place. That's what they're demanding more and more. And if you look at the wave of entrepreneurs around the world, social entrepreneurs as they're called and others, that's great, because the only way to rebuild the global economy is to have millions of people start businesses. They won't all work, but if enough of them will, some of them will be great. So you might ask, what's the role of business schools in trying to make businesses an institution of hope? I've always taught at business schools, that's my life. On a good day, which today is. I think there is a lot of hope for business schools, but the change won't be easy. I think management in business is more like music, art, theater, the creative arts, than it is like science. And that what we have to do to create value for local stakeholders is we have to build our creative skills. And you can't do that with spreadsheets and analysis. Those things are really important. I'm not suggesting they're not. But equally important is building the creative side, building the skills, exercising the muscles that are on the creative side of it right now. I teach a course on theater, turning MBA students into a theater company. We write an original work of art, produce it, they act in it, and we perform it in front of the whole community. And what they learn in that, I just stumbled into doing it, but what they learn in that is how to exercise these creative muscles. And that's something that, for the most part, business schools, there are things to do more and more of it, but it's not nearly enough, not fast enough. So I'd like to see business schools take on more ideas from the humanities, from the creative arts. And our students need to understand how those creative enterprises work. There's a lot of work going on in design and innovation, and that's very positive too. So I think there's change in business schools. Everyone knows something's wrong. I think we just can't quite agree always on what it is. I have my idea, but others have equally good ideas about what's right. You know, the idea of value is pretty interesting. Value isn't just about money. In fact, for the most part, I think we are motivated by our values. But we aren't motivated by money. There's nothing wrong with money. It's a dissatisfier. It can demotivate you if you get it wrong. People have argued what really drives us is autonomy, mastery of something. That creates value for ourselves. Whether it's mastery of martial art, whether it's mastery of Excel spreadsheets, whether it's mastery of songwriting, whatever it turns out to be. So this idea of mastery and autonomy and the freedom to do it. And have a sense of purpose. Those are the things that we have to build into this calculus of value. We know this. We know this as human beings. We need to remember it when we're thinking about business.
Good. Again, you can see lots of his videos online. He's got some very, very good interesting thoughts. So, look forward to seeing you all again. Hope you got a little bit out of this. Again, it's all we can do is scratch the surface in an hour, hour and a half. We'll have another session on getting voice and values in May, and then there'll be some more sessions in each of these big topic areas that I mentioned earlier as we go along. So your eyes open, so I'm next time. Thanks. Thank you. Oh, we do have